65A for the House of Representatives. I'm joined by Rena Moran, Anthony Meshke, Lena Bugs. Rena is the incumbent, DFL elected. Anthony Meshke is the Republican. And Lena Bugs is Green Party. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
As the way the format will go, you will get 2 minutes to open. And Rena has decided to go first.
Okay, well, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm really excited about the opportunity to really speak to the folks in the state of Minnesota. My name is Rena Moran. I am the incumbent for District 65A and really excited to have the opportunity to run for re-election. You know, over the last 2 years, we have had a really great 2 years with the huge investment that we've made in education, from early learning to all-day K to free lunches to really freezing college tuition for 2 years to investing $100 million in housing to really working on making the Women Economic Security Act, you know, a place where women can go and be valued for their place in the workforce. You know, I'm really excited because I have the opportunity to really bring the voice of the people to the Capitol and to make those connections from the Capitol back into the community. And that has happened with such bills like the Promised Neighborhood Bill, where we have looked at creating better educational outcomes by investing in education through a holistic approach. Really excited about that bill. Was the lead author for Equal Pay for Equal Work for Women. Very excited about that. And also looking at dementia. So often women are the providers of their elderly parents. And a lot of times in the communities of color, especially in the Black community, we don't really know what that means. So creating a task force and putting funding into educating our community on the impact of dementia is really, really important. So, you know, I look forward to continue to do the work because we have so much more that we need to do with continued investment in early learning, with all the research around the ACEs and brain development, and getting our children a great start by investing in early learning is crucial to better outcomes in the long term. So that's something that we need to do, something that I'll work towards, ensuring that, you know, our kids are graduating out of high school and ready to go into college or ready to go into a career, whichever one they choose. But it's something that must be done. It's a priority for me, and it really creates a stronger community and stronger schools and stronger families. So really excited about the opportunity to run for re-election.
Thank you, Rena. Candidate Anthony Meshke.
I'm Anthony Meshke, and I want to start by saying I believe everyone listening to this is smart, capable, and you do not need a politician telling you what to do. I'm a Marine, and I served 4 years active duty. I married my wife, Rose, 4 years ago, and I am a mechanical engineer. I have a 1-year-old daughter. Her name is Ruby, and I have a son due in December. I want to eliminate a bunch of laws if I get into office. I want to eliminate a bunch of laws that are infringing on everyone's freedom. I want to decriminalize all forms of weed. I want to stop spending money on stadiums. I want to legalize fireworks, stop corporate welfare, legalize raw milk. I want to make sure the roads are clear of ice in the winter. I want to legalize Sunday liquor and Sunday car sales. I want to give schools the ability to employ teachers based on performance. I believe every parent should have the freedom to make choices for their children, including what their children learn in school, what their children eat in school, and what is injected into their children by doctors. I'm sick of the government forcing people to buy things, spying on every phone call without warrants, killing Americans without a trial or jury, and putting people in prison for victimless crimes. Rena Moran is limiting everyone's freedom. She voted against the right of self-defense with HF 1467. She voted against fireworks, SF 1694. Rena gave the state the authority to store babies' blood samples by not even voting on that bill, SF 2047. She voted against paying off the school debt, HF 2083. Rena voted to only employ teachers based upon seniority instead of performance, HF 1870. She voted for higher property taxes, HF 2337. And she voted to give $350 million of your tax money to the Vikings, HF 2958. She voted for the forced unionization of child care providers, SF 778. I do not support Rena in any of these mentioned bills. Please help me support the people's natural right to liberty and freedom, and please check out my Facebook page, Anthony Meshke for MN, to see my videos and order some road signs, Meshke for weed or Meshke for fixing roads.
Thank you. Welcome. Candidate Lena Bugs, Green Party.
Well, hello, Minnesota. I want to say hello to the residents in my district, 65A. My name's Lena Buggs. I'm running as a Green Party endorsed candidate. I'm running as the answer to the corporate-owned two-party system of the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm also running because this past legislative session, there were a lot of bills and a lot of laws that got missed. For instance, the move to amend legislation, which says corporations aren't people and money is not speech, was basically a bill to limit big money in politics. That didn't get passed. The transportation funding didn't get passed. The Minnesota sex offender program, that didn't get passed. There were a lot of bills, a lot of good legislation. The GMO labeling bill by a good friend of mine, Representative Karen Clark, that didn't get passed as well too. But I am a political organizer. I'm a financial advisor by trade. So I have the finance and economic background to be able to do this job. This transitions me perfectly for being the state rep. Now, I want everybody to know the importance of a state representative's job is to not only find resources that complement our district, but complement the state. So I want to thank you for hosting this debate, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I say everyone has said a mouthful to get it going. I think we're looking forward to our listeners here in this KFAI listening audience is looking forward to hearing your answers to some of our most important questions. Let's start off with jobs. That's the number one thing. The governor is proposing, Governor Dayton, who's currently running, is proposed several job strategies that he wants to employ. The biggest one I think that's going to impact most people is the raising of the gas tax. Candidate Moran, or elected Representative Moran, what are your thoughts on that?
So I guess when we look at the raising of the gas tax, that is really for the purpose of creating a strong transportation bill. And when I look at raising the gas, that wouldn't be, one, it really couldn't pay for creating a transportation bill. It's just not enough resources to make that happen. But when I look at job creation, I want to look really into District 65A and what that means for really creating jobs, really for a lot of our young people who have nothing to do. So often we see them in the streets, hanging in the streets. Sometimes we see them, not having the resources that they need to be productive citizens. So I would rather promote some of the nonprofits and our organizations who are doing great work to engage community, to engage our youth, to get the funding to those communities at the grassroots level, to engage, to educate, to train, to give our young people the skills that they need so that they can be productive citizens. I also would like to, looking at District 65 and looking at opportunities and looking at the job disparities that are within our community, is looking at creating a process where giving people, a second chance. I think my opponent over here talked about I don't remember quite how he framed it, but what I do know when we look at constituents being incarcerated in high numbers, that incarceration is disproportionately impacting the black community. And the only way we're going to have a strong community is find a way that we can create opportunity for all of us. So that is how I look at a job bill that is reaching down at the grassroots level with everyday constituents, everyday parents who have the opportunity to go to job where they can afford child care. So it's how do we create those possibilities for all of us in District 65A and not just some of us.
Candidate Meshke, what was your thoughts on it? Yeah, I don't think we should be raising the gas tax. I think we should stop spending money, $350 million on stadium, $90 million on a Senate office building. That's money right there that should be going back to the people. That's people's money, and we're giving it to the representatives. They're keeping it for themselves in a new building at over $1 million per office, or they're giving it to a large corporation, or the Vikings. They're a private business and they're profitable, so we shouldn't be giving them the people's tax money. Talk about jobs in the district. Look how many businesses have been shut down because of light rail construction. Light rail's there. I think we should be using it more. But in the space that light rail went in, we could have fit in 2 or 3 more lanes and put in bus lanes. I mean, there are other options there that would have been a lot cheaper, could have been a lot better for people driving to and from work, and it wouldn't have shut down all the businesses. I was just at my village the other day, and construction there, their business is down the lowest it's ever been. And I've seen a lot of businesses close. Burger King, like 2 months into it, just closed instantly. I mean, that's jobs in the neighborhood. And people, I mean, those jobs aren't going to come back anytime soon because they're boarded up and opened up somewhere else outside the district.
Thank you, candidate Meshke. Candidate Bugs, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm not in support of the gas tax. I think when it comes to jobs and economic development, you have to sit on that committee if you're elected as state rep for District 65A. So it all comes down to committee assignments. So if you talk about jobs and economic development, you have to sit on that committee. I'm a big proponent of a $15 an hour cost of living wage. Notice I said use the terminology cost of living as opposed to minimum wage, which this past legislative session, the current power structure, the Democrats came out with a regressive $9.50 minimum wage, which keeps people in poverty, keeps people at 40% below the poverty. And, giving corporate welfare to Ziggy Wolf and the Vikings was another misstep of which Rena Moran voted for that legislation. You have to look at government waste first. And I think that, investing in commuter rail and light rail when we already had a pretty decent bus system, I just don't think that was a very prudent decision. I mean, you have to exercise what we in the financial world call fiduciary responsibility, and you have to perform due diligence. So I think the more radical approach to creating jobs is, number one, you have to stop the waste. $950+ million went to light rail and commuter rail. So you have to stop government waste. I also think that by employing people at a cost of living wage at $15 per hour, that gives people more money in their pockets, families. They're able to expend that money into the community and into the economy. It's better for businesses. Now, when you're talking about what we can do to help small businesses, because I'm a big proponent of helping small businesses. I think small businesses have gotten lost in the shuffle with the introduction of light rail. So we need to be cutting taxes for small businesses, but we also need to have some sort of subsidies where small businesses can tap into resources to help with labor costs as well too.
Thank you for that, for your answer on that. Given that the topic of jobs still stay within that range, one of the key components of the job has been MnDOT. MnDOT is a major employer throughout the state. MnDOT receives quite a bit of money to create jobs through our natural processes of road reconstruction. But yet we found that that's been somewhat out of kilter for people of color as far as the employment goes, and also contractor. Let's start with Lena on this particular. What's your thoughts on, and how can we fix MnDOT to a certain degree?
Well, I think that we all would agree that MnDOT is a broken system, along with the Met Council. Those two systems are broken. In terms of getting contracting for minority contractors or minority employers, there has to be some sort of legislation created, an employment law that would dictate how communities of colors would bid on these contracts.
And your answer, Anthony?
Yeah, Lena hit on a good point. The Met Council, I mean, that is not a very, I mean, that should be abolished to begin with. And then the MnDOT, I mean, we should start getting things down to the lowest possible level. Let the counties decide what roads should be fixed. Let the cities decide what roads should be fixed. The state should be making decisions for these local communities. On the issue of race, I mean, I don't believe we should be looking at contracts based on the race. I mean, when we are doing that, we aren't looking at the best option out there as far as price-wise, miles of road per cost. I mean, if you're looking at it based on race, I don't think that's what the government should be blind in the issue of race.
We can never be blind on the issue of race, because racism is something that is very valid and real. And we know that, if we look at the history of the United States of America, it was built on the back of racism. So it does matter. And I think
I
we have
agree.
to
That was
look
wrong.
at it.
Slavery's wrong.
Yeah, so, and looking at MnDOT and the Met Councils, the one thing, when we look at District 65A and the Green Line and University Avenue, we are a community of people who advocated wholeheartedly because we knew MnDOT would not do the right thing. One of the reasons we have the 3 stops right now on Hamlin and Western and Victoria is because of the community that came out in opposition to the current status of the green line. So sometimes, we can clearly see and say that, yeah, MnDOT has not been effective in creating jobs and really looking at meeting those hiring goals that the Department of Human Rights had put forth. I have been working with the YWCA in St. Paul, who have dollars that they've gotten from MnDOT to train men and women to be prepared for those jobs that comes out of the MnDOT. And what has been an issue and a problem in that process is that they are not hiring the people who have been trained and are ready and prepared. And so now it's this work with Billy Collins from the YWCA and others to really engage MnDOT around not just giving them funding to train and prepare community members to get the jobs that they are so readily trained to have, but also push them on hiring, because that is what we need. We need people in District 65A to be working, to be self-sufficient, to be capable of taking care of themselves and their family.
Given that the topic of hiring in your District 65A, can you please give me some statistics that you are aware of that your constituents have presented to you regarding the employment, the racial makeup of your districts, in addition to your business versus assistance that's garnered in your districts? And let's start with Anthony first.
Yeah, the government should stop trying to squeeze money out of they're trying to squeeze money out of these businesses. They look at the businesses as revenue generation for taxes. We should look at them as a benefit to the area, not as a detriment, and try and punish them for moving into the area by high property taxes. We should get government, we shouldn't be providing subsidies for these companies to pay employees. I mean, we're paying people when they aren't working, and then we're paying people when they are working. I mean, when does a taxpayer get a break from this? There's like the warehouse tax and things like that. I mean, there's so many taxes out there that are affecting the businesses, and it's disproportionate they're creating a lot of value for the society and for our area, and yet we're punishing them for being in our area.
Rena?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question was, I wanted to know your understanding of your district's makeup, whether the percentage of minorities in your district, including the percentages of business in your district, and I wanted to get some numbers, the percentage of working class citizens in your districts and those receiving public assistance. Those are the items that typically most people, and if you like a second shot at this, if my question isn't clear, just stop and ask me.
Well, I don't have those data available. I don't know them offhand. Had I had that question before, I would have prepared for having some stats for you. But what I can say is that the impact of, we're looking at jobs in District 65A, I mean, we can look in general at the St. Paul, and we know that with the crisis that happened in 2010, 2011, 2012, when so many people was losing houses, not only businesses and houses and homes, but went through whole foreclosure crisis, that it was African Americans who were, again, and people of color who were disproportionately impacted by that crisis. So the number is high, and we look at comparison to Minneapolis, we can still say within St. Paul, those who, the hiring, the numbers and those who have been hired has not increased over the last 2 to 3 years. We still have so much work to do. But I would like to say that one of the first bills that I introduced in 2011 when I was sworn in, because of the impact of the light rail and what I was really afraid that would happen to not only me as a homeowner, but so many other homeowners who live in the Central Corridor, folks who have lived in that area all their lives, who would be impacted by the light rail, was that there would be increased taxes. And because of the increased taxes, because of property value going up, increased taxes, that many folks, not only businesses, but homeowners, would be taxed out of their homes. So one of the first bills I dropped was to try to get a cap from preventing those who had invested their livelihoods in businesses, but also as becoming homeowners, to not be pushed out of their homes. That bill was not heard in 2012. I reintroduced it again in 2013. It has not been heard again because the tax committee chair did not believe in capping taxes. So once again, I'm going to introduce that again. Should I be reelected in 2015? Because I believe that those who have invested in District 65A, especially in the Central Corridor, should be protected or prevented from being pushed out of their home because of increased taxes.
Candidate Bucks, what is your thoughts on that? Do we need to rephrase the question? Are you pretty clear what the question was?
I'm pretty clear. If I need a further clarification, I won't hesitate to ask you, but I'm glad that you asked this question. I first want to say that I think it's deplorable as a state representative that you don't know the demographics and the racial makeup of your city. You
I don't
asked
think
for,
he asked that question about
yes,
the
he
racial
did.
makeup.
You
He wanted
asked,
to
I'm
ask-
speaking
I'm
right
sorry.
now.
She's got the
Yeah.
mic, so.
Okay.
And so to make clarification, the question was exactly as she's answering it. I asked for the makeup of the district. I asked for the percentage of businesses. I asked you the percentage of businesses. I asked for the percentage of people who were working in your district, and also the percentage who were receiving assistance in your district. If those were if you had those answers, so she is correct.
Just to continue, the demographics, our district is one of the most diverse districts in the country. We have residents who earn very little. We have residents who live in the affluent Summit U neighborhood. The racial makeup is 41.5% Caucasian, 32.5% African American, and 20% Asian, with the rest being non-determined, different ethnicities, if you will. You asked a question about the percentage that are receiving public assistance. 27% of our residents are receiving some sort of public assistance. We have 20% of our elders ages 65 and older who are receiving some sort of Social Security, disability benefits in our district. Our district financially is a very poor district. We have 16% of the residents in our district who are making under $25,000 a year. We have 12% of the residents in our district who are earning less than $10,000 a year. You asked for businesses. Well, the business makeup, we have roughly about 8% of our population who serve in government entities and who work government jobs. We have 85% who work private sector jobs. So our district is extremely, it's very diverse. You know, we had this past legislative session, I believe there was a financial appropriation of $100 million that was allocated towards housing. And folks, this is why I'm running. I'm running in direct opposition to the pretend progressive policies, because we have in our district 1,226 vacant homes. Ms. Moran has 3 vacant homes on her block. Folks, this ought not be. So what I'm gaining, should I be elected, is I'm hoping that, you know, I have a lot of, I have the ability to work across party lines, being a Green Party endorsed candidate. I will not only caucus with the Democrats, I will caucus with the Republicans. It's all about relationship building, and I have those relationships at the Capitol. So, I mean, we've got some serious issues that we have to deal with: the wealth disparities, the employment disparities, housing disparities. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the answer. If there was any misconception in my last question, if you'd like a chance to take a minute to clear anything up, feel free. Do you have any?
No, those really good numbers. You have studied those numbers really well, and that is absolutely great and fantastic. You know, but yes, District 65 is a very diverse district. You know, it's not, Summit U is not an affluent district. Summit U, the district, is part of the Rondo community.
It is an
You
affluent
know,
district.
and there's not many within that district. Affluent is, I guess, a beholder of the eye, you know, and I wouldn't say it was affluent.
Well, I would say
Well,
It is definitely a working class. Some are working class. but
Anthony, is there?
its numbers are good.
Would you like to take a chance?
Yeah, I knew the makeup was about 20% Asian, about 40% African American, about 40 Caucasian. I didn't know them as exact as Lena did. That was very well. But I haven't been running my campaign based on race. I mean, I'm trying to get liberty and freedom for everyone in the district. I'm not trying to pick out one race over another. I'm trying to give it for everyone equally. I don't want any bills to be singling out people specifically. I want it to be there for everyone. And then I would also want to say that there are less jobs available in St. Paul than 2 or 4 years ago with unionization childcare. That has driven some people out of business, and it's also one of my friends, he has autistic children, and he has to hire helpers, and that unionization affected that, and he is not able to hire them anymore.
With that being stated, one of the key components that's in the governor's race right now is the auditing of programs in the state of Minnesota. And I think candidate Johnson has run several ads, and the governor-elect Dayton has also run some rebuttal ads. Anthony, what are your thoughts on that, and what would you do if you were elected to try to help the taxpayer be held accountable for whether the people that receive taxpayer dollars be held accountable?
Yeah, they should definitely be held accountable. I mean, we have way too many unelected bureaucrats out there that are getting grants from the government and giving them out to who they want. I mean, there's no accountability there. We need to audit all this. We need to rein in the controls into the government. We need to start looking at efficiencies and where everyone's tax money is actually going. I mean, I believe that people are best able to spend their own money instead of giving it up to some government or some bureaucrat and letting them decide what the government should buy.
Rena?
I think accountability is important, absolutely. I think when we look at the systems that have been, over the last 10 years, underfunded, resources have been taken away from many of those systems, and people, we don't really have, within the state government, we don't have the capacity to do the work that has been, over the last 10 years, forced on many state entities. You know, there has been so many unfunded mandates that has been a part of the administration over the probably last 15 years, you know. And again, I am really, really proud of the work that we have done over the last 2 years and the investment that we have made into human capital, and to even look at how we can continue to invest in education. I think that is one of the key. We're looking at a district like ours to ensure that our young people are graduating out of high school, capable of going to college. When we look at how the educational system within the last 15 years has been underfunded, and so much has been put on with those systems to perform, yes, we have to have accountability, but we also have to make sure that their resources are available so that we can do the work that we as a state say is our priority, and that is our children.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Lena, can I get your answer?
Yes, I am all for auditing certain programs. I think we need to take a closer look at the programs that are working versus the ones that aren't. At the top of the program, I said that we needed to exercise what's called fiduciary responsibility and due diligence. So I think that some of the programs that are in question actually need to be means tested first to see if they're working or if they're not. If they aren't working, then I propose that we get rid of those programs. However, let me say this, because during the last legislative session, there was approximately $350 million that got cut from the Health and Human Services budget. So while I am a proponent of audits, I do want to say that it is necessary, and government does have a role to play to some degree to serve its citizens.
Given that one of the biggest items that's come under the scrutiny of of everyone has been the American Care Act. The American Care Act has had some missteps in implementation, and it's necessary because of the number of people who were excluded from getting insurance coverage. What are your thoughts on some of the things that could be used as if you're elected to make the American Care Act work better? Would you keep it? Would you want the state to not have it? Rena?
So we are talking about the Affordable Care Act.
The Affordable Care Act.
Yes, and so I would say the Affordable Care Act has had a really, we could say, a rocky start. You know, looking at the website, you know, really working to ensure that people have access to coverage in a timely manner. But I would say the Affordable Care Act is needed. So